Hi, and welcome to Magic Numbers. This is episode number 95, and this week we are revisiting our Wilds of Eldraine set review, and we are going to try to look at which cards we got right, which cards we got wrong, and most importantly, why did that happen? And by we, who do I mean? Well, of course, I mean myself and Trumpetman. So, hi, Neil. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see what we got right and wrong too.
Well, don't worry. We will mainly see what we got wrong because that's how I build those episodes. But that doesn't mean that we didn't get things right. We did get things quite right this time. I'm going to give you a mini spoiler. But I think that the most important thing in those kind of set reviews is to actually figure out what we got wrong. Before we move into that part, of course, I have to thank my patrons, and I have 3 new patrons this week. So thank you very much to Eric, Sperlo, and Kyle. And thank you to mtgazone.com for sponsoring me. And with that out of the way, very briefly and briskly, we can move to the episode. And yeah, basically, just to give you an overview if you never heard about it, we do a set review. We don't record it. We just do the set review by basically grading every single card, but we have a very specific card grading system where the evaluation are based on previous sets, game and hand win rate. So basically, we're trying to guess which card is going to be in which bracket of win rates, and those brackets have been carefully designed around the distribution in the previous set so that we more or less know how many cards should be in each win rate brackets roughly and try to guess where they are. One thing that is really tough is comparing between sets because one set can have the average win rate of 55%, the other can have the average win rate of 53%, and it's very hard to compare each card from those sets with each other because, of course, the cards from the set with a 55% win rate is going to have an average higher win rate. So what a card that might have, something that looks to you like a high win rate actually is a medium card because of the set being a bit of a higher win rate that it's so high. So in order to solve it, I do this thing called normalization, where I normalize the win rates to the average of 50%. How does it look like? Here we have maybe more extreme examples, but we have a set that has an average win rate of 52%, and here we have a set that has an average win rate of 58%. And of course, the problem is that an average card from the set with 58% win rate is going to be as high a win rate as a very good card in a set with a 52% win rate. So in order to make sure that those things are comparable, we have to squish those two bell curves together by basically pulling them to the common middle, which is 50%. And that's what I'm using maths to do. I'm basically pulling all those bell curves that we get from every card and every set towards 50% average. We know that 17 lens users have an average of over 50%. Just how much over 50% it is varies from set to set. And because we are setting them now at 50%, that should be taken into account with. And then hopefully you can compare cards by looking at their win rate. Of course, what it means is that you will not get cards that have 70% win rate. Like sometimes you get those extreme outliers in the sets because everything is going to be dragged in this direction. So all those cards that have an extremely high win rate on 17 lands are going to be pulled slightly lower. And also that cards that you think, have like 56, 57% win rate, all of a sudden can be around 51, 52% because of that normalization. And that brings us to the grades. So in our system, A plus is cards that have the win rate after that normalization that is over 60%. And examples of the cards that have A plus are Orcish Bowmasters from the previous set from Lord of the Rings. And we have an A plus in this set that's Graph Triplets in this set.
And for A's, we're looking at 57 to 60%. So Arwen, Mortal Queen from Lord of the Rings, and Redcap, Gutter Dweller from...
from this set. Again.
This set.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Ikoria, and you would be like, oh, that's not right.
No, I would be Wilds of Eldraine, yo.
Thanks.
A minuses, we have a couple of uncommon examples, and that's Saruman Trickery from Lords of the Rings, and we have Imodain Recruiter from Wilds of Eldraine. These are between 55 and 57% win rate. Now everything got frozen in my computer, and now it unfroze with a bang.
All right. For our B pluses, 53.5 to 55%. So Claim the Precious. And then from Wilds of Eldraine, Tough Cookie.
Tough cookie. That's how it crumbles. Grades B, that's between 52.5 and 53.5% win rate after normalization. Examples: Frodo Baggins from Lord of the Rings or Regal Bunnycorn from Wilds of Eldraine.
B minuses, so pretty nice, solid cards you're happy to play all the time. Urkai Berserker from Lord of the Rings and Hatching Plans from the set.
Oh yeah, we are supposed to say how good those cards are. Well, C pluses are the cards that you're quite happy to put in your deck, but they are not like super bombs. But if your whole deck would be consisting out of those cards, you'd probably have a pretty strong deck. And these are the cards that have this normalized win rate between 50.5 and 51.5. Examples: Quarrel's End from Lord of the Rings and Hamlet Glutton from Wilds of Eldraine.
And your C's, your bread and butter playables that you're still happy about, though. Win rates 49.25 to 50.5%. I included the 0.25 because last set re-review, Sirkovitz, chastised from me for that. Examples of this: Protector of Gondor, and from this set, Johann, Apprentice Sorcerer.
Then we have C minuses. These are between 48% and 49 and a bit. 0.25. Here we have Phial of Galadriel from Lord of the Rings or Candy Trail from Wilds of Eldraine. So these are the cards that are not excellent, but it's not a shame to put them in your deck.
And then we have our D pluses, so 46.75 to 48%. We got Nastian from Lord of the Rings, and from Wilds of Eldraine, we got Stingblade Assassin.
Yeah, also all of the cards that are D plus are black spells with someone holding a knife in the art. That's what I concluded.
Thematically, so now we know for the future.
Yeah. These are the cards that you probably don't want to have in your deck, but sometimes you will. Examples are Fog on the Barrow Downs from Lord of the Rings or Spiderfoot from Wilds of Eldraine. And these are between 45 and 46.75% win rate.
In your D minuses, these cards generally are pretty terrible, but they could sometimes have some synergies. So you'll play them once in a format and it might be okay. Win rates 42 to 45%. So Knights of Dol Amroth from Lord of the Rings. And from this set, Plunge into Winter, which could work with the blue-white theme of tapping things, but generally that deck is terrible. So you
isn't
want to
that just
avoid
like strictly white Hitlane Knots?
Yeah, but different sets.
Yeah,
Hitlane Knots was nice because there was a Spells Matter theme.
I totally get it. It's just like interesting to see that exactly same spell, and I'm going to check during our presentation how Hitlane Knots were actually in that.
I think they were like a C or a C plus.
Probably they were, yeah. And we have Fs at the end, win rate under 42%. These are the cards that are just rubbish or constructed plans or require combining it with 7 planeswalkers in your deck or things like that. Examples are the Ringo South, which was the worst F that we have ever given so far. And it's not being surpassed in this set. As foretold, though, was foretold to be an F by both of us in the set review, as we have given it an F, and indeed it became an F.
So thematically, if you want to identify rares that are Fs, there's people walking or riding with horses and like going through a passageway.
That's the one.
So there you go.
Clearly that's the one. I didn't even do that on purpose. So this is how our grading scale looks like. This is before adding the WOE. I think it's now going to be increased now to 13 A pluses and 53 A's. But generally, the scale has been designed by me because it's been done based on the data from 8 sets or something. It's been designed by me to have like a maximum of cards within the C minus, D plus, D grades. That's where the peak of this curve is, with few cards being A's, some more cards being B's, and then few of them being D minuses and F's. This is a design. I basically came up with the win percentages that you've seen before in order for the curve to fit it. And then as we expand, it's going to live with its own life because I'm not going to change those brackets anymore. That's how they are, and that's the definitions of A's, B's, and C's from now on. It's going to be interesting to see how those things change. And they will change because every set is slightly different. For example, this set has been a bit more, a bit less top heavy. So there's fewer A's than in the previous set. There's a bit fewer B's than in the previous set, but it's been quite heavy on the C grade and C plus. So these sort of like middle cards were more popular. And there's also been a bit less of the a bit more of the D plus and D range, but for some reasons the D was not prevalent at all. Weird. That's how it looks in comparison. So, in order to get this episode done, I looked at how we graded the cards, how correct we were compared to previous sets, and we're going to look at the outliers on our grading scales and try to figure out why we picked certain cards as to be good or to be bad. Just to give you the recap of what happened before, we did first in March of the Machine. In March of the Machine, we got like around 45 cards correctly, and around 80 cards from the set we got within one hit of the mark. And then there was a long tail of things that we were quite wrong on. We had like some missed by 7, some missed by 8. In Lord of the Rings, we had fewer good hits, so like still around 40 of the direct hits, but only 56 of the misses by 1 compared to the 84 in the previous set. And then we had like also quite a lot of, especially me, quite a lot of the ones that I missed by 7 grades or more. So how do you think we look in this set?
Well, you kind of gave us a little bit of a spoiler already, saying we did pretty well. And one of the takeaways from the last couple times was it's really hard to account for how strong colors are in sets. Because if we look at March of the Machines, I believe we vastly underrated the blue cards. And then we learned that we graded things overall too highly. So we took that into Lord of the Rings, and like green was basically unplayable. So because of that, I think we missed a bunch because we just graded all the green cards too highly because we didn't realize the color was almost unplayable. And I think to our benefit, I think Wilds of Eldraine is pretty color balanced. Like I think, blue is probably the worst color and white is a little bit worse too, but they're definitely like fine colors to play. And so probably we were just looking at our card evaluations, and because there's a lot more C's, those are the types of cards which are usually easy to identify as being C's. Usually we miss more on like how much of an A and how much of an F things are because it's a little bit hard to tell. So because of that, I think the structure of the set allowed us to maybe perform our best, but also hopefully because it's our third time doing it, we've also just improved.
We hopefully learn how to play it, although we still probably overestimated. If I remember correctly, we overestimated the grades by a bit.
We're
Still,
optimists, yeah.
Those the third time that we overestimate things, and we are getting better at it.
Pare it back every time.
So this is our numbers. We both got 62 of them absolutely correct. And this is, like we didn't even do the set reviews episode. We just I filled in my spreadsheet. Neil filled in his spreadsheet. We never probably looked at each other's grades ever until today. I started doing the slides, and it's shocking how similar they are actually. We did get roughly 110 of them within the 1 mark, which is again quite impressive. So 160 of them we got within the 1 grade. I would say pretty decent.
That's pretty good, yeah.
We didn't have any miss of 8 this time, and we only have like a handful of missed by 7. Actually, one of them is the same card, and only few with 6. So I'm going to be looking at all this misses by 6 and all the misses by 7 um, in the next slides, and we're gonna
And
look
you
at
win the award on this set for between the two of us. So congratulations.
I
You were
think
more spot on with the one-offs, and you had fewer big misses. So
yeah,
I
that
will
like
give that one to you. Well done.
yes, after 3 sets of losing. Oh no, actually one was a draw, one was your win, and this time is a draw. So I think we can say we draw. We're tied now. But I thought,
Perfect.
yeah, I was just like slightly better on those big misses. I had fewer of those. But okay, yeah, I mean, this is it. I'm going to move to the cards that we missed on the most, and this is going to be my way of torturing you for not playing as much Magic as you did. I'm gonna put your misses first. Oh no, I'm gonna put the misses that we both did first, and then you, then me, and then we can move on with our lives. But first card that we missed both by 7 grades was Hilda of the Icy Crown. You gave it an A minus. I gave it an A minus. The card looks like an A minus, and I'm pretty sure in some
set universes it would be an A minus. It's just
I,
that it's the worst color pair in the set.
but imagine if that would be like a Golgari card that would do the same thing whenever you make a food.
Right, it would be amazing. So no, I mean that makes a lot of sense. That's kind of what we were talking about with like it's hard to predict how good a color, or in this case a color pair, is going to be in terms of supported themes. But I do think we have learned a little bit of a lesson where unless it's super pushed, A plus B mechanics tend to kind of fall apart, because this also was the case with the Scry deck in Lord of the Rings. And it's like, well, it looks really strong, like you're getting counters everywhere, you're doing all this stuff, but if you just draw the wrong pieces, or you just don't have inherent synergy just to a single card, you need a lot of you need it to be super pushed, and usually they don't want to do that because then it becomes oppressive. So something to just keep an eye on.
And also, like, if all the payoffs are on the stick, then you just like are so fragile to any removal that it's not. If you're trying to do the thing, opponent, believe it or not, is going to try to disrupt it. And if it's easy to disrupt, they are definitely going to disrupt it. So yeah, there's the problem.
But if we look at the history of things, like A plus B mechanics that are actually really strong, if we look at like energy, for example, energy was a thing where it's like it wasn't really that interactable by like removal, right? Because you just got energy and then you spent it. So you had the producers and the users and this type of thing. So that would be like an A plus B mechanic you might want to look towards as being potentially more successful.
Yeah. Also, like I guess that the removal was slightly poorer in those decks.
Oh yeah,
and
back in the day, for sure.
I think that there were a couple of those energy cards that just like outrun the removal because the creatures became bigger at the faster rate than the removal increased or something. When you get this thing that get a +1/+1 counter every turn, and it was just like running away from the removal every single turn. But here it's not. Here you basically want to play Hilda as maybe 7 mana play. When you play Hilda, you tap something, and you still have to have 1 mana to pay the 1 mana and make this 4/4 elemental, and then you got some kind of a benefit. Otherwise, you tap for mana, play Hilda, and it dies, and you're lost your main payoff, and then you're left with a bunch of tap cards that don't do anything. Exactly. Anyway, lessons learned. It's not an A minus. We should have known, but this one looked just so pushed in terms of like how much it does. If I would draw any parallels, maybe like Galadriel or the Simic Elrond from.
Yeah, very similar.
That's exactly what it was.
That's what we were saying. Same idea.
Yeah. All right, Neil's misses.
All right, the Moonshaker Cavalry. I said it was a B. You said C minus. This is the white crater behemoth-ish looking thing. And well, just maybe wasn't even that good. So I have no idea how good this card ended up being.
A D minus.
Not very good. Well, this set also is pretty fast.
It is. 8 mana is a lot. And I mean, I lost games to it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm pretty sure that most people lost more games by having it in their hand. 8 mana, especially that it was not like in a color combination that was conducive to ramping.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there's some formats maybe where this type of card is a lot better, but this set didn't really have that much ramp, and you were really pressured to always be doing something, especially because adventure cards basically require it because people are always doing things. They don't run out of things to do. So having an 8 mana card with no buyout in a set of adventures is a bit of a liability.
Yeah, it's also like white was not specifically go wide, because maybe even if you like got to this 8 mana and you still had like 4 creatures, that would have been fine. But you often in white you didn't. You had this 1 creature, and then you play the Moonshaker Cavalry and just like whatever.
Give
Yeah,
something
plus one
+2/+2
and flying. Yeah. +2/+2 and flying. Yeah. I guess Crater Hoof would have been better.
Well, yeah,
because
it counts itself, and there's actual
better.
ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure this card in green-white is probably where it was best if you look at the color combos, but
I guess so. I guess I never played
still
it.
probably not good.
There we go. My computer is just stopping. Okay, there we go. Ariat of the Charmed Apple. That's you gave it an A-, and I gave it a B+. So we did pretty close to each other. By the way, second of those mythic witches that are big misses in our lists, which is something that these are the sort of like key storyline mythic rares in the format, and they are traps in limited that people that are arguably experienced fall into, at least in the set preview. I think we quickly figured out that these cards were not where it's at, but
well, the card looks pretty good, but that first line of text, I was like, how much credit do I give for that? Because it's like you don't really want to enchant your opponent's stuff, because then if they kill the Ariat, it's pretty bad. And if it's just if it's already the pacifism, then it's already doing that anyways. But I thought, how bad can a 3 mana 2/4 with this like drain ability be? It's got to be pretty good. So I was like, oh yeah, probably A-, maybe B+, like you were thinking. So I'm surprised actually this card is a C-, because I had a pretty good white black deck the other day, and this card would have been great in it, but I didn't have it.
That's the I think problem that I wrote a thread on that topic during the format, and I called it the trap of mythic rares in Arena. Is that to have a good Ariat deck, you need to be in it when Ariat is being passed to you. But in Arena, it will never be passed to you because it's worth 40 gems. So you either have to first pick it and then hope that the deck that comes together every 20 or 50 or 100 drafts will happen magically exactly at that moment when you first picked Ariat. And again, this will happen every 100 drafts that you open Ariat. Or in the 99 other cases, it's just going to be a mediocre deck with Ariat because you will not be in this magical moment when it's perfectly open. So I'm pretty sure that the card is going to be better in a thing like Modo, where people are not stoked in picking Ariat early because it's worth like 1p or 1 cent.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So I think that's the thing. I actually wrote that thread about Hilda herself because I had this situation that I opened Hilda, and I just like, I'm gonna pick it and pick her and just see how it's going to develop. If I see that I see Charade and something else, I might even go for that tappy deck. But in the end, I just like got pack one, pick 3, Imodane's Recruiter, and I just moved to
off to the sideboard
aggro.
with you.
And I had a lovely 40 gems. Thank you very much, Arena. But then I regretted I didn't pick those grand ball guests that were there in my first pack. They would have been so much better for me as a first pick. And it's bad. I mean, mythics should be the thing that you think, wow, I opened this mythic. It was cool. I could
it should be exciting, right?
But it's not. It's not. It was not in the case of this or Ariat. Anyway,
or the green tortoise.
Still a C-. C- is fine.
Yeah, it's playable.
Yeah, it's like a playable 3 mana 2/4. That's okay if you're in black white. Another miss, blind obedience. Can you walk me through this one?
All right. So blind obedience, the extort enchantment on the bonus sheet. It's pretty aggressive because it keeps your opponent's stuff tapped as they come in. I gave it a B minus. You gave it a C. Historical precedent. This card I think was pretty good when it was first printed in, what was that, Gate Crash? One of those Ravnica sets. And the theory is that the taxing, like getting to pay an extra mana to drain, is pretty good. But I guess it was better when mana was worth less. And actually, this is kind of a theory I'm kind of like that has been formulating in my head as cards get more and more pushed. I think and also because of the way like Arena Best One is and all these types of things, the games crunch down, right? Because we look at like the average game lengths. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, like what's the average game length for like an average format? Is it like
Yeah, like
7-ish, 8-ish turns?
8.3, 8.4, and I think it got down like by a chunk.
So I don't know how long
Maybe
games
9.3. 9.3 is the average. Like 8.6 is a fast format. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how long a game was on average in the past, but my guess is it was much, like a decent amount longer. And so these types of cards which generate like advantage over time, like incremental advantage, I think just were better. But like the way that cards are now, it's like what are you giving me up front? And
Yeah.
blind obedience doesn't really give you much up front. It's saying like, okay, if you invest in this, then it'll be good for you later. Similar reprint that I really liked, but I think probably ended up pretty bad, was the Dawn of Hope. That also like makes a soldier for 4 mana.
You just wait. You
I'll
just
wait.
wait.
Okay. Anyways, that was in my deck the other day, and it was pretty bad. But so blind obedience, my guess was it would be like.
I mean, luckily I was not burdened by historical knowledge of Gate Crash or whatever the set was in.
That's lucky for you.
So I gave it a C.
quite a bad set.
In the end, it was a D minus. Yep. I think that all of the things that we'll be grading were given B minus by one of us and ended up being D minus in reality. So we have A Tale for the Ages. 2 mana enchantment, enchanted creatures you control get +2/+2. You gave it a B minus. I gave it a D minus. And
this one was interesting.
It was a D minus.
You got it spot on. I think this is one that is worth, this type of card is worth examining, like continuing to examine, because it really ties off like the central mechanic, right? Like if you look at the spoilers, the previews, then this set, it was just like roll tokens it felt like they were everywhere, which I think is kind of true. And so I was like, even if you get like 2 creatures that got +2/+2, like that's a huge effect. But I don't know, it just wasn't worth the card. Like it wasn't consistent enough when you wanted it. So
yeah, that's great. You can play this, and on turn 2 you play your Charted Courtier, and it's still a 3/3 lifelinker. So you basically remove any kind of drawback of the curse.
Yeah,
I think again, this is the.
But it's that A+B problem, right? It's the same thing, kind
sort of A+B, but I think that because you can have so many A's in this particular type, and then this is your only B.
Well, that was the theory. That's why I gave it a B minus. But I think the way it played out, like how many creatures did you actually get in play that have a roll token on them, like in a given game at a time? Yeah. Usually like 2 maximum. So that was the problem with this card. It's like you had to kind of work for it. And a lot of the cards you had to like curve in a way so you actually could get the roll tokens. So it was a lot more of a complicated mechanic than it looks, because it's like there was a lot of timing restrictions on when you get a roll token. It's not just like, yay, it's stronger. Because if we a point of comparison with this card would be like Tempered Steel, which like gives all your artifact creatures like huge bonuses, which that card was like pretty insanely good in its format, even in draft. But that's because you just played all your artifact creatures and they all got bigger. Like there was no restrictions on that part, even though it was a very similar type of card. So I guess also the lesson is like, imagine and this is very hard to do from previews, imagining what game states are going to look like and how cards like interact with each other on a curve. And it's something that you can maybe do more with like your draft skeletons, things like that you're looking at. But you you quickly learn to experience whether or not it pans out or not.
Yeah, I did a bit of deeper dive on that card by pure chance because when I was doing my data analysis, A Tale for the Ages was the first card alphabetically, so I was seeing it all the time. So I do know that, for example, if it was first picked, it had a much higher win rate. So that was clearly a card that if you picked it early, you could build around it successfully. It was still not amazing, but it was like a C plus kind of card when you first picked it. The problem started when you just sometimes try to pick it late and squeeze it in your deck, even though you didn't have the sufficient number of rolls floating around. And I think this and so much else in this format is linked to how, let's not be afraid of using that word, poor the extra slot was. Like
This set did not need the bonus sheet at all, really.
Well, no, the bonus sheet was, if anything, the bonus sheet was ruining some of the main set's mechanics, because things like
space.
No, but things like whenever enchantment goes into graveyard was mainly largely based on rolls and on the fact that there are going to be enchantments in the extra slot. But those enchantments are worthless in 95% of the cases. So they didn't add anything to the enchantment theme, which was the theme of the green, white, and black, white, for example. And all those cards that were when enchantment goes into graveyard, were basically only having hopeless nightmare and hopeful vigil to support them. That was it. That's it. Maybe hatching plants, but they were not even in the color. So
yeah.
Anyway, I think I'm gonna make I've been thinking a bit which other enchantments could have been there that were not. Anyway, different story. Right, Asinine Antics. I gave it a D plus. You gave it a B minus.
Dude, so this was one of the toughest ones to think about. I think it ended up being a D minus. I think when we're talking about grading, I think this was the longest one I went back and forth with, because I was like, it could be really clunky and terrible, but in the right situations, it's so powerful. Yeah, and ended up not being good.
Yeah, I suggested to G Guards and to that cube to change the name of their podcast to this mystical dispute. The G Guards was not enthused by my suggestion. You got a blue spell that has a 2 mana discount if you cast it on particular thing, so that's fine. Yeah, it's a 1-for-1 replacement. Yeah, it's a weird card because it sounds like a Wrath of God, but it's anything but. And yeah, that's why I probably gave it a D plus, because I know that changing something into 1/1 is much worse than changing something into a non-existing entity. Which is funny when we see in a second how I did not apply that wisdom to everything that I graded. There we have the third of the witches.
Yep.
Agatha of the Vile Cauldron. You gave it a B minus. I gave it a C. It ended up being a D minus.
Not so good.
Again, third of those iconic witches in the set, and third of them that is a dud in limited, which is sort of shameful, honestly. Don't get me wrong. I do like the set. I don't have a problem with Wilds of Eldraine, but there are some significant misses of flavor like this, for example, in this set at least. Again, I mean, I just think that it was not very well aligned with what the color part was doing. Too easy to kill a 1/1 in the environment with rat outs and flick the coins that were running amok everywhere.
Yep.
Let's go to my misses. My misses. And first one is Dawn of Hope. You gave it a C minus. I gave it a B minus.
Let me tell you, I put that card in my deck, the latest deck I played, and I kept it in there because it was like a slow control deck. So I thought, well, maybe. But the longer I played with the deck, I was like, man, I kept drawing this card. It's so bad. I still think it was decent because my deck was just a ton of removal and like grindy. So it was okay.
I did lose a game to that card just slaughtering me because someone had a grindy control deck. Yeah,
it's so bad.
Yeah, the 2 mana to draw a card. That's like that would have had like in modern day, it would just probably do like a 1/1 lifelinker for 3 mana, and probably you draw a card for free or something.
Or maybe like 1 mana, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe you draw it for free, but only limited to once a turn or something.
Or it'd make 2/2s.
Oh yeah, something. Yeah, exactly. Well, B minus, because I did remember playing with the card and I thought that's in the grindy archetype, and I thought that like white black is perfectly grindy and it has the tools that you could use it technically. So I thought maybe, but no, still not. And my second miss, Stroke of Midnight. You gave it a D. I gave it a B minus. It was a D minus. Chapeau, you were right. I was wrong. I thought maybe it's this time. It looks just good enough. It's instant. It's a permanent. There were big things in the set. Maybe I thought no, still not. And I think the problem is, of course, this is a sideboard card, not a main deck card, and best of one. That's a problem.
I think you have to have extraordinary circumstances for a card like this to be playable. It would have to be something like Avacyn Restored, like a format notorious for having bad removal, because the whole shtick of that set for people that didn't play 15 years ago or whenever that set was that like it was all about soul bonding creatures and like them powering each other up. And so to have something that gives you this bad of a drawback with Stroke of Midnight, you'd have to have a format like that, I think.
I mean, I guess also if you would have like Eldrazi or something, no?
Eldrazi, yeah, that would be a big one. But like, I don't even think this card would be good in like, Vow or something, where it's like there were so many bombs, because
no, it's
there was just
sideboard,
other removal.
Probably,
yeah, sideboard.
Good sideboard card.
There's bombs in this set too, and the card didn't pan out. So
yeah, but then again, you play like against a deck with like 5 Ginger Brutes, and then you sit with this in your hand, like, ooh,
yeah, it is
3 mana to change
card.
a Ginger Brute into a 1/1.
That way you can kill their gruff triplets with it, and just pump up the rest of them.
Yeah, and still give them a 1/1. Don't start me on the gruff triplet. Why do those copies have to have a casting cost of 6? There's no reason for that. I was playing against it, and
I saw your thread.
Yeah, I was very tilted about it, so I made a thread and pretended that I'm not tilted about it. There you go.
I think I played against gruff triplets my second game of the format, and I was like, we'll see how long this format lasts.
Should have been probably a mythic gruff triplets. It's like, I don't know. I get that there can be strong cards, but this one maybe was a bit too much. Anyway, so this is how we had our absolute performance in Lord of the Rings. And these bars show how much off we were, but it doesn't look at the direction. So if we missed one by 1 grade in one direction, it counts as 1. If we missed by 1 in the other direction, it still counts as 1. So the average of that's going to be quite high, because obviously we are going to miss quite a lot of those things. This is our performance in Lord of the Rings. We were average 2 grades off on commons, average 2.5 on uncommons, and average 2.75 on rares and mythics. Improvement, you think?
Yeah, because as I mentioned, I think there's a bunch of C's in this set, so I think we're going to do really well in the commons. I think we'll also do better on the rares and mythics, because there was just so many Fs. So we're
like 1.2, 1.1 misses on the commons, so almost like half, 50%. Well, almost like 50% less error, which is quite good. Here we were in. Here we were roughly similar, around 1.6. Before that, we were 1. We were 2.5, and now we are 1.6. So also quite a large improvement. And here we were 2.75. Now we are around 2. So also
all around well done on those.
All around well done. I think that we missed by quite a lot less, but of course this shows you the misses independently of the direction. If I got like one common that was slightly over evaluated and the other one that was undervaluated, on average I would have been more or less right. No, so if we look at the direction of those changes, we have much smaller errors. So At commons, we have we overestimated the power of commons by 0.7 grades.
In LTR, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, in
In Lord of the
LTR,
Rings.
yeah. Then around 1.6 in uncommons and 2 in rares and mythics. And in WoE, look at that.
I still, overrating these commons, thinking they're all C pluses when they're C's, but
But 0.4 is pretty good.
well, not quite
0.1,
0.0. Yeah, 0.1 on your end is really good.
it's pretty good. I mean, that means that at least we got the commons more or less like where we should. We still overrated uncommons by
But
one
I think
grade on average.
I do think a huge part of that is that, again, I think this format's pretty well color balanced.
Mm-hmm.
So if a color completely goes completely out of whack, that means so many commons you're going to miss on because you're inflating them by like a grade. So I think we did well, like adjusting for it and like knowing our problem of overrating things.
But we also
And
were lucky
it
that
happened to work out that there wasn't like a completely unplayable color.
So blue had not such a great numbers.
Right, but I think those cards looked worse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I
So
think
we're like, okay,
we
the blue cards don't look very good, so we're not going to give them high grades. But it's not a situation where they look okay, but actually are terrible. So we didn't get duped this time. Although it is funny seeing our big misses on rares and mythics because of all the. I mean, we improved, but
yeah,
it's those.
I kept those graphs at the,
the
same
witches.
at the I kept those graphs at the same kind of bars. So they dropped by half almost of those mistakes. One grade. It means that on average, when we were supposed to give a B, we gave it a B plus. That's not it's not a lot, especially with rares and mythics that have a big range of what grade can those cards have.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like bunch of cards were not even graded because they did not have enough to have a game in hand win rate in 17 nights because they were so unplayable, which maybe helped us to limit the number of cards we were grading in total. But I think that like one grade is okay. Last set, 2 grades on the rares, that was on average, that was already a bit iffy. So I think we did quite much better this time. So this is how we missed on colors last set. We missed white by 2 grades on average, and we missed green by 3 grades on average. So like a whole letter grade difference between what we gave to green cards and what was there. That was a big thing. We were spot on red, and we actually underestimated how good black was in Lord of the Rings by a bit. We were okayish on the blue. And multicolor cards are hard to judge, we learned, and you could see that in the thing. So what do you think we see in the current set?
Well, I think it's going to be hard to say. I think the colors, as I said, for the most part, like the cards showed how good they were on average. My guess, if I had to pin it down, we probably still overrated white and blue a little bit because there's some of like the tapping themes and there's some enchantment themes that didn't quite play out in this set. And I don't think any of the colors are necessarily standouts in this set. Like they're like black was in Lord of the Rings, where it's like we were going to massively underrate it. Maybe red's a little better than we gave it credit for in this set.
So actually we got red the best in terms of like how close we were to the actual evaluation. We missed on the white the most. I think we overhyped the white. I think that we had both the white-black grindy deck and the white-blue tapping deck as something that might be more playable, and because of that, we have some of the cards overvalued a bit. But blue, black, and green,
pretty good,
all
yeah.
of them are pretty decent, because we have to keep in mind these are the grades for all rarity cards, not only for the commons. So being within one grade on average is pretty decent. Multicolor, yeah, that's a bit of a larger miss, but it's still less than we had in the last set. So not 2.5 grades, but 1.4 grades or something like that. But white we missed by quite a lot, and actually it's white where most of our misses were located. So yeah, that's how it looks like.
And it makes sense too. You're saying a lot of it's like how well are the themes supported in terms of like how does it actually pan out? And so here it's like, well, we kind of you have to you have to start out giving some credit of like, well, this is what the cards say they're going to do, so it's kind of I kind of expect them to live up to a certain level of standard. And
Yeah, I guess that, yeah, dozen more sets and we would maybe nail the intuition
but
on which.
we're bringing it down. We're being like, no, you're probably not as good as we think you are. Every single set, we're bringing it down a little bit.
Yeah,
Just a little harsher grading every time.
right. So then I looked at, because of course we are overvaluing the cards on average, which obviously makes the cards that we undervalued much more interesting, from my perspective at least. So here are my biggest misses, the cards that I undervalued the most. And I have Sleep Cursed Fairy as the most undervalued. I gave it 5 grades lower grade than it actually got. I think I just underestimated how good being playing this on turn 1 and waiting out until it starts being active is. I thought that takes forever to be active, but actually it's a pretty good thing to have on the board waiting for you, and you can speed it up whenever you have mana ready. It plays well with those counter spells. If they don't play anything, you just untap your thing and remove a time counter from your suspended spell. And the 3/3 flying body was pretty decent in this format, it seems. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how you graded it.
I don't remember. That was kind of a tough one to grade too.
Mm. Uh, then Twisted Fealty. I did not see any sacrifice cards. I mean, there was one in the main set, and there were maybe Goblin Bombardment and Vampiric Rites. Is it in the special sheet? So I thought there's no sacrifice, so the steel things are not going to be great. And I very quickly figured out that you don't need them in this particular set. Those steel effects are just good on their own. Twisted Fealty giving you extra Wicked Roll, and Ariet's Tempting Apple, which I also undervalued, giving you the extra 3 mana damage potential. They were just good enough on their own. They were quite pushed, and I quickly understood it, and I played those cards like crazy in my decks. But in the review, I didn't see that those spells are going to be strong, and I definitely undervalued them for that reason, because I didn't see sacrifice mechanisms for the stealing. And turns out you have to think about those cards also as just steal, not steal and sack kind of potential. Spiteful Hexmage, again, I thought that it's not such a great turn 1 play because it's hard to get that roll out of it. But so many times I just played it as a double spelling thing. I play some like Voracious Vermin on turn 4, and then I play Spiteful Hexmage and put the Cursed Roll on one of my rats, and I'm super happy about that. I didn't completely see that play pattern with the card. I played with it and it was very fine. And also you get those games that you play some kind of a green black with more auras, and then you play Spiteful Hexmage on turn 1, and turn 2 you put a monstrous roll on it and you swing for 4, and your opponent is so much on the back foot that so I had those games as well. Into the Fake Court, I thought maybe the format is too slow for that kind of thing when I evaluated the cards. But it wasn't. I mean, it was a fast format, but you could still play those blue decks, and Into the Fake Court was just so important in those decks. I maybe didn't estimate correctly how important card draw will be for those slow decks, and Into the Fake Court was absolute must unless you had like maybe, I don't know, 2 Hatching Plants or something. So I got that one wrong. Land Tax, I probably gave it a very low grade, and it was actually moderately playable. It was, I think, a C on our grade. So in terms of the win rate, which is surprising. I thought that land tax will not be playable in the modern Magic era, but it is. And I read some Twitter thread from a couple of days ago of someone describing a game when both them and their opponent were just like playing on two lands uh, because of the land tax, and it was a sweet game to play. And I think that this is a nice thing that land tax could introduce from that Enchanted Tales slot. That card is not a complete waste of being there because it has some win rate, which is non-zero and non-F. It does something, and if it makes stories like that, then it's totally worth to put it on the slot. But other cards maybe were not as enthusing. Red Cap Thief, I just gave it a low grade. I shouldn't have. I don't even understand why, because I usually give quite decent grades to cards like this. But I just looked at the data and I gave it like a D plus. It should have been way higher than that. It was probably better than I would have still thought, but I probably should have given like a C or something. And then knowing Crescendo, we finally got a deck that could use this kind of an effect. And I think that the effect was just strong enough to be decent. Although I'm pretty sure that this card loses quite a lot in higher ranks of best of one, where people are A, playing around the Crescendo a bit more, B, aware of making sure that they do the right blocks. So it loses this sort of surprise factor that you very frequently will get in lower ranks when people will just like, oh no, who could have seen that slowly rolling, knowing Crescendo coming? And Collector's Vault, I think the similar kind of thing. Like, I really thought it's going to be a stone cold unplayable because I thought that the format is going to be faster, but it was actually reluctant playable. Yeah, reluctant playable. Well, I think I gave it an F, and it was like a C minus or D plus or something.
One thing interesting there is like Into the Fate Court, because wasn't there a similar card in Phyrexia OB1? Wasn't there like a 5-mana draw 3?
Oh
that was
yeah,
unplayable?
But there was Lorien revealed in Lord of the Rings before, so
yeah. So I'm trying to think about these types of cards like in their environment. Like, why is Into the Fate Court successful? I know why Lorien the Revealed is successful because the card's just amazing because it's island cycling. But I'm trying to think about like the difference in those sets, because in this set, like Wads of Eldraine, you can't just be doing nothing. But the difference between I think this set and Phyrexia LB1 is that like there's that cheap interaction component, because I think there's like a lot of things that allow you to not just lose when you're on the back foot in Wads of Eldraine, like the things like Rat Out or Flick a Coin paired with being X1s in the format, Candy Grapple. There's a lot of just like cheap ways to interact, which allows Into the Fate Court to really shine. But like if I'm thinking back to Phyrexia OB1, it was pretty much Hex Gold Slash. Like I'm having trouble thinking of like really good interaction that was cheap, which really limits
there was
those types of cards.
Afflict with something afflict with
that one was good. Yeah, you're right. But I think the problem was that was in a color pair that basically did one thing and pretty poorly.
Yeah,
but maybe it was only those two. And I think like there's a lot more cheap removal in Wilds of Eldraine and a lot more ways to like go back and forth. So you need that component where it's like you can actually get to turn 5 and sometimes take it off and not just be dead. Even though it's still a format about being on the board.
Yeah, I think that they also like Phyrexia OB1, a specific thing for that format was that the games were fast, but also they were over very much earlier than they were finished. Well, here it's not to that. Very frequently here there was like a racing game and it was still the last turn that you didn't know who's going to win. While in Phyrexia OB1, lots of those games were just like, well, the guy is dead for 3 turns already. I'm just finishing my damage.
Yeah, because I mean they're both board formats, but one was much more like ships passing in a night, right? Because a lot of the times it was just like trade damage, and then you played the hazardous blast, you can't block, you're dead, or you play down the furnace 4/5, give things haste and close the game. But much more in Wilds of Eldraine is like just a war of attrition. Like you have to be doing things constantly.
Yeah.
But it's just like the board kept changing. And so I think it's just interesting because it's like they're very similar formats, but completely opposite.
Armoric, these are the cards that I gave lower grades to than they achieved through their win rate. So I guess undervalued them. And of course, I undervalued them before I got to play with them. So that's the things that I undervalued in my review. Yep. Okay, let's look. But also, nice thing to see. Like in the last set, I think I had those 20 or 22 of those undervalued cards. And here it's only 9. And then let's look at yours.
Super solid.
Also 9.
Into the fake port on mine as well. Here I had a -3, so that was a nice
but also
conversation.
land tax, sleep.
Yeah, land tax, same thing. I'm still not really convinced, but the data's the data. It's got to be at least decent, right? I'm not gonna be the land tax guy, but I can. My opponent plays in the land tax. I got to respect it. And I think also land tax benefits from the fact that opponents don't always know when to break the land tax and when not to. So it kind of benefits from that. I think it's like better players probably play better against land tax. Extraordinary Journey. This was the X-Spell in blue, I think. I just didn't really understand the fact that it was a card draw engine because possibly, I was like, oh, you just replay it. What's the point? But yeah. By the way, anytime something adventures in, you start drawing cards are actually pretty good.
I mean, that was one of my absolute favorite cards in this format. I played, I don't know how many drafts that had it. For some reason, I opened that card or got that card. It's pretty fun, quite a lot.
I mean, it's a lot stronger than it looks.
Yeah.
And I just didn't quite understand what it was talking about. But yeah, it was really good. Sleep Curse Fairy, I guess we pretty much gave it the same grade, where we probably were like in the D+, we were like in the C+, B- range, but it was higher than that, maybe like a B+.
I can check while you're talking about the next card.
Goblin Bombardment. This was one of those ones where it's like, how much has it changed in 2023? I actually went the other way because a lot of those I was overvaluing, but Goblin Bombardment was the rare one where actually, because of rats, because it was like a bunch of small creatures, because like it just was the perfect environment for it. Used to be, obviously the card was insane when damage used to stack. We won't go into that, but the right environment still lets certain cards shine. I don't think Goblin Bombardment would have been amazing in every single set if it was reprinted. Let's put it that way. We already talked about Ariad's Tempting Apple. I think you had some good points about stealing things just being good enough. I think I did rate the actual steal one better because it's like, oh, you get the Wicked. I think I was valuing the roll higher. So it's interesting.
I think, you probably got like one grade higher on both of them, but because of that, you sort of ended up with Ariad just being there.
Just being on this list. Yeah. Non-crescendo, same thing. Generally, those effects are pretty bad, but because you have the token makers in this set, I gave it 1 letter grade too low. Not horrible. Same with Collector's Vault. I think we both basically said it was unplayable, but it was just a bad playable. Like in the right deck, it could do some things. One time I played against it, and my opponent had the 01 in green that gets value off of artifacts and enchantments coming into play, and like they just went off with like the Collector's Vault, and it was pretty disgusting. And then Thunderous Debut. Which card is that?
Isn't that the 8 mana thing that put something from the top 20 cards?
Oh yeah, that card. I didn't give it enough somehow. Okay, well that was bad. That card's clearly awful.
No, but I mean, this means that you gave it probably an F, but it was actually a D or something.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I have to double check. Where is the Thunderous?
I'm
debut?
Shocked actually. That card.
It was
does not look playable.
D+.
Okay, well I gave it an F,
and you gave it a clear F. Yeah.
I stand by my F, but apparently I'm wrong. I am shocked.
D+, dude. D+.
But I mean, I think what's interesting is there's almost no commons and very few uncommons on these lists. And so I think we did a pretty good job. And it's just like the weird rares and things that we just undervalued.
Knowing crescendo and into the fake art. Basically.
Those are the main two. And so that's why it's like those are really the cards that I want to think about. Why are they good and when are they good and what are the circumstances? Because the last time we saw a good go wide effect was in Dominaria United with the red white spell. And so non-crescendo being like kind of the first one since then is kind of interesting. So takeaways for the future.
Future. Talking about the future. I mean, no, let's talk about the past because we still have probably like 10 minutes. We can talk about the set. What were your thoughts about the set in general?
I thought the set is. I'm still playing the set, but I took a little bit of a break in the middle, and I think part of it is just I felt like the games quickly got kind of all samey and kind of boring to me. And I think part of that is it's actually interesting. We look at the data. There's so many C's, C pluses, C minuses, and so it's just like a lot of these resource exchanges of a bunch of commons. And at the end of the day, with the bonus sheet being a bunch of Fs and just not that many exciting rares, I sort of felt like Wilds of Eldraine was just so. And so I'm sort of getting back into it right now at the tail end of the format. In terms of like sets over the last year, it's definitely not one of my favorites, but I think it's fine. I'm definitely looking forward to the next set though. I like the Lord of the Rings way more than this set.
Yeah, well, Lord of the Rings was modern powered in theory, at least. So
But not even really in terms of the draft. I think the thing about Lord of the Rings is I think it also had it was dominated by commons and uncommons, which this set also kind of was. But the definition of the decks within Lord of the Rings was much more pronounced. So like when you're playing blue red, you're playing blue red, and it's very, very different than when you were playing you know, whatever value deck you were playing in Wilds of Eldraine. Yes, there was themes, but mostly the themes was like, can I put creatures into play and can I power them up? There's some cool things you can do with like hatching plans and whatnot, but that was much more like a thing to do here and there rather than like what you were totally drafting around. And so there was a lot of like individual card locality in terms of power in terms of Wild Eldraine. Like when someone had Imidane's Recruiter and you didn't, I mean, that was kind of it. But Lord of the Rings, you could overcome that through synergy, and it was, I think, a lot more interesting because of that.
yeah, I mean, I had a different complaint about the set. I think that and part of it is linked to the fact there was a lot of C's, but as I see it, at least some chunk of those C's were C's because they were C pluses in one archetype, but D's in another. And then because of that, they got like those average numbers. But because there are those cards that are sort of basically secret multicolor cards, the draft became problematic because you pick a lane and then you need to hope that the right half of the commons are going to be opened for you. It doesn't even like white can be open, but I still can get nothing that is interesting for my particular deck because they are the wrong white cards for my particular deck. Like if I got the controlling white path and I didn't get Kellen Light Blades because they were just not opened, I feel really, really sad about it because that's a very important card for my white controlling deck. But then if I picked an aggressive route and I didn't get the Arkan's Glory, for example, I also felt very sad because if I'm playing an aggressive deck and I don't get Arkan's Glory, I have a big problem in playing Princess Six Flight, for example, which is a card that would be a good reason for me to play white. And lots of examples like that of cards that I need to open particular order of cards in order to play two color combination. Otherwise, I will end up with a better version of it, and I can't do anything about it. I can read the table and know that my color is open, and still if I open the
Well,
wrong half of
yeah,
it, it's
I,
just
I
going to be
think we're
sad.
saying the same thing coming at it from different angles because, like, when you played the Ginger Brute Hunter and you just
Mhm.
have like these powerful cards, that's essentially what you have to do when you don't have these powerful synergies come together. So you just hope that you open up the powerful uncommons that are good on rate because the synergies themselves have to be so hyper specific that they often don't come together. And so I think that's just a damper on the set overall. But we look at that to something like, I think probably the best set this year probably was March of the Machine for me. Even though I like Lord of the Rings too, but because the thing about March of the Machine is like you had interesting build arounds, but they were supported at common. but then you also had so many, so many rares with the bonus sheet, with the battles, and like it is kind of cool the fact that the play boosters, I don't like the price point, but since I'm mostly arena user, it doesn't matter to me. So I feel for y'all that are
It
playing
matters
paper.
that you actually get a discount.
Yeah, no, I mean it's better for arena players, but regardless, I'm talking about gameplay right here.
Yeah.
When we're looking at the rare, like the fact that there's going to be more rares starting next year in sets, if we can get some interesting build arounds at rarity, so like the replayability shoots up while having a base support of like archetypes, because I think really at the end of the day that's what you're talking about, where because there was only a few things you were looking for when they didn't show up, you were kind of like, dang it, I had the perfect setup, but I didn't get my princess take flight, so it's like kind of a bummer.
Mm.
But like if there's multiple of those types of effects where it's like you didn't get the best one, but you got something that at least supports it, where it's like, because for example, it's kind of easy to get just like enough bargain cards because there's just a lot of them, but sometimes you didn't get the things that actually like you really want to do with the bargain. And so I think just having the right mix of those supports is really what makes limited tick.
Mm.
But then having them be different enough too, because I kind of felt like every deck in this format was just like, I kind of want some adventures, I kind of want some rolls, I kind of want some bargain. And I know that was different, like archetype to archetype, but it still kind of just felt way too homogenous.
By the way, just like, because I don't know if you followed what he wrote about the new packs, but they did some reviews and they did some question and answers with people, and someone did this like TLDR on the what they said about the new pack, and then one of the points that they made is that they want to unlock more uncommon slots because there's going to be 100 uncommons, 80 commons now. They want to dedicate more uncommon slots to limited build around cards at uncommon.
That's pretty
And this is
exciting
something
if
that
true.
I was very, very thrilled to hear that, and hopefully that's going to happen. Of course, we don't know. They say things, and What's says many things, but it's nice to hear that they're thinking about it from that lens, at least. So yeah, hopefully, build arounds are increasing the longevity of limited formats by quite a lot. So it's, I think, a no-brainer for them to put more of those. All right. Well, this is a sad moment for me, honestly, and I hope that I will somehow bribe you into trying to do it. But because Neil is not creating content at a pace that he normally was, this might be the last episode that we do of those set reviews. I will try to either bamboozle, convince, trick Neil into doing it again, or I will try to find someone else because I still want to do them. I think that evaluating a set before it's released and then coming back to the review after it's being finished is, I think, more valuable than to running straight set review. But as is now, it might be the last one with Neil, and I had a blast doing each and every one of them. And I will feel slightly sad that I'm not going to do anymore. So thank you so
We
much.
will see. For now, I just don't want to grade all the cards every single set, but
That is that
we
is
might get a
something.
workaround someday.
That is something I totally understand. But yeah, no, thanks for doing all of those with me, and thanks for doing all the bloody 10-hour set reviews for some of them when we sat through and discuss all the cards.
Yeah, it's been like a good year of reviews we've done, honestly. Because I think
Yeah,
we started with Phyrexia, so
yeah, I think so. And then we did
we got the new format. The new format was much more forgiving, but yeah. So,
but yeah, yeah, thanks so much.
been fun.
Where can people find you?
Mostly I'm just a Trumpetman on Twitter. Although, if I have to start paying money for Twitter, that's probably won't find me there.
Jesus Christ,
I'm around the
I'm
around the interwebs. But I don't know. Mostly right now I'm just trying to be like, I'm very casual about Magic these days, so I play an arena open here and there. So I'm not super hard to get in contact with, but also I'm not as active as I used to be, and it's where I am these days, and it's fine.
All right. Well, obviously, there we go. Obviously, this wouldn't be possible without the 17 lands because we use 17 lands to make the grades, and without 17 lands, there wouldn't be great. So thanks to 17 Lands folks for organizing this for us and giving us this resource that is amazing. And we're waiting very quickly for the Ixalan, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and evaluating Cascade that's not Cascade for some reason. Yeah, thanks to Fake Jake Brown, who is my secret helper. That is not so secret because I acknowledge him every single bloody episode, but he's amazing in helping content creators becoming better content creators. So I would highly recommend, if you are a content creator and looking for someone that you can hire to help you, Fake Jake Brown is the person. And of course, thanks to Fake Jake Brown, thanks to Esesco and Mana Junkie for the music I get in the podcast version of it. And thanks to my patrons and mtgazone.com. And with that, I'll see you next week.